Saka is out. That's it. That's the sentence that changes everything about Sunday. Not Saka is doubtful, not Saka is being assessed. Out, done, gone. And we're walking into the Etihad, the single hardest away ground in English football, for what might be the most important 90 minutes of our entire season. And I keep thinking, does anyone actually understand what that means? Like, not in a headline way, not in a big injury blow way. I mean, do we actually understand what losing Bukayo Saka does to this Arsenal side at a structural level? Because I don't think most people do. And that's what's bothering me more than anything else this week. It's not just that we're losing a great player. It's that we're losing the player who makes everything else work. The one who gives us width when we're under pressure. The one defenders genuinely fear. The one Arteta builds his press around on the right side. Remove him, and you don't just lose an attacker, you lose the shape. You lose the logic, you lose the reason. City's fullback can't push forward freely. And then, because apparently one catastrophic injury wasn't enough, we've got Odegard, Timber, and Calafiori all in the "we'll try tomorrow" category. Arteta said that at his press conference. On a Friday, for a Sunday game. We'll try tomorrow. That's not confidence, that's hope, dressed up as a plan. By the way, I'm Amelia. This channel, we talk about what's actually happening and what it actually means. If that's the kind of football thinking you want, subscribe. And actually, quick one, I changed the setup a bit. New background, new room. I'm still getting used to it, so tell me honestly, do you like this one? Or did you prefer the old setup? Just say it straight in the comments. Anyway, do you think Arsenal can genuinely get a result at the Etihad this weekend? Yes or no? I want to see where people are at. Now let's actually get into this. Because there are three things I think are being completely underestimated going into Sunday. And by the end of this video, I think you'll see this game, and honestly this entire Arsenal season, very differently. Let's start with Saka, and I want to go deeper than just he's important. Think about what Bukayo Saka actually does in an Arsenal match, not in a highlights package way, but in a mechanical, positional, tactical way. When Arsenal are in possession and building from the back, Saka's runs on the right channel do two things simultaneously. First, they stretch City's defensive shape horizontally, which creates gaps for Rice or Zubimendi to receive in the half space. Second, his willingness to carry the ball at pace means City's left back, whoever that is on Sunday, cannot stay tucked narrow. He has to respect the threat. And the moment he respects it, space opens on the inside for Eze or whoever's running the 10. That's not an accident. That's a designed relationship. Arteta has built the right side of his attack around Saka's ability to create those dilemmas for defenders. Now, remove Saka. What happens? The right side of Arsenal's attack becomes, at best, predictable. At worst, it becomes a place where City just absorbs pressure comfortably and launches counters. Madueke is the replacement. Maybe. And I don't want to be harsh on Madueke because I think he has real quality. His debut was impressive. His instincts are good. But here's the honest truth. He is coming into this game with a knee problem. Arteta said it himself. He'll decide on the morning. Which means we might be starting a player at the Etihad who is not fully fit in the biggest game of our season, in a role that requires him to run at Joško Gvardiol repeatedly. Gvardiol, one of the best left-backs in the world right now, a defender who is physical, aggressive, and incredibly smart about when to press and when to hold. And we're going to ask Madueke, possibly carrying a knock, to beat him consistently enough to threaten City's backline? I want to believe it. I genuinely do. But I also have to be honest with myself. The best case scenario is Madueke has a Martinelli at Anfield kind of night. You know, those moments where a player just finds something extra because the occasion demands it. It happens in football. It's beautiful when it does. But we can't build a title strategy on hoping for a miracle performance from a player who wasn't fully fit in training 2 days before. The worst case? Madueke lasts 60 minutes, fades badly. City exposed that right channel relentlessly in the second half, and Arteta ends up throwing on Dauman, a teenager, into a match that could define our season. The realistic case is somewhere in the middle. Madueke does his job, stays disciplined, doesn't get isolated too often, and Arsenal manage the game tactically. But managing the game at the Etihad is another way of saying trying not to lose. And we need more than that. We need to win. Here's what makes this even more concerning. The last time Arsenal went to a top 6 away game without Saka, when he was injured earlier this season, we were flat, we were narrow, we created almost nothing down the right because the entire right side structure of our attack was absent. Not just the goal threat, the structure. That's not a coincidence, that's a blueprint problem. And Arteta knows this, which is probably why he's considering Havertz in a slightly different role, essentially asking him to become more of a central link-up player who helps us maintain possession higher up the pitch. More on that later. But the point is, the Saka absence isn't just forcing one substitution. It's forcing Arteta to rethink how we function as an attacking team entirely. And that is a massive, massive problem, going into a game where you genuinely cannot afford to be disorganized. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable for Arsenal fans. Because Saka being out, as devastating as that is, might not even be the biggest crisis we're walking into Sunday with. The Odegard situation is the one that's keeping me up at night. Let me explain why. And I want to be careful here because I think there's a version of this conversation that's too emotional. Oh no, Odegard might miss it. And a version that actually understands the football. Martin Odegard is not our best player. I'd argue Saka has had that status for the last 2 seasons. But Odegard is our most important player in terms of how we control a game. There's a difference. Let me explain it. Saka wins you moments. He beats a man, he creates a chance, he scores a goal. Those are decisive moments, and they're brilliant. But Odegard controls tempo. He decides when we speed up and when we slow down. He decides when to play forward and when to recycle. He's the one who makes sure we don't panic when we're under pressure, because he always has an answer. A short pass, a body rotation, a movement that takes 3 opponents out of the game with 1 touch. Without him, Arsenal tend to play faster than they should. We rush. We lose the ball in bad positions. We don't breathe. And playing fast against Manchester City in their own stadium is not a tactical decision. It's a death wish. City are built to punish teams who hurry. Their press is designed to force exactly that. Rushed decisions, sideways passes at speed, turnovers in dangerous positions. They want you to panic. They thrive on the energy of a nervous opponent. And if our tempo controller isn't on the pitch, who is keeping us calm? Eze? Maybe. He has composure on the ball. But his role in this system is more vertical, more forward-facing. He's not a conductor the same way Odegard is. Havertz? He has football intelligence, absolutely, but his game is about movement and pressing and winning second balls. He doesn't have Odegaard's ability to slow a game down with a turn and a pass. Zubimendi does some of that from deeper. And I think Zubimendi has been one of our unsung heroes this season. He's been brilliant at shielding the defense and moving the ball quickly. But asking him to also carry the creative weight that Odegard normally holds, that's too much for one player. So if Odegard doesn't play Sunday, Arsenal don't just lose a creator, we lose our composure mechanism. And at the Etihad, when the crowd is loud and City are pressing and the game is intense, we are going to need that composure more than almost any other time this season. Now think about what this actually looks like on a football pitch. Imagine the 55th minute. City are 1-0 up. The Etihad is rocking. Arteta needs us to build patiently, move the ball cleverly, and find a moment of quality. In a normal Arsenal game, Odegard drops between the lines, takes a touch, turns, and plays something that unlocks a half second of space. That half second is where our goals come from. Without him, we're more direct, more reliant on individual brilliance, more vulnerable to exactly the kind of defensive structure City will set up. And I keep coming back to this. It's not about any one of these injuries in isolation. It's about all of them together. Saka out, Odegard doubtful, Timber, who gives us that right-back burst and helps us play out, also doubtful. Calafiori, who has been magnificent in his role, also being assessed. This isn't bad luck. This is a squad crisis. And the question I want to ask, that I think every Arsenal fan needs to sit with, is how did we get to the most important game of our season with this many question marks over players who should be nailed-on starters? Was this avoidable? Were we reckless with their minutes? Did we not manage their fitness carefully enough across a congested schedule? I don't have a definitive answer, but I think the question matters. Because if we bottle this title race, and I hope we don't, I genuinely hope we don't, but if we do, this week is going to be looked back on as the turning point. The week our squad depth failed us when it mattered most. Now think about this, because this is the part most people are ignoring completely. The Havertz conversation. A lot of the pre-match discourse has been Havertz versus whoever for the number 9 role. And on the surface, that's fair enough. But I think that's actually the wrong way to look at it. The more interesting question isn't whether Havertz starts, it's what Havertz starting tells us about how Arteta is setting up to win this game. Because there are two very different Havertz games. There's the Havertz who is given license to press aggressively, win headers, hold up play, and be a physical presence. That's the Havertz who runs constantly, exhausts centre-backs, wins space for runners. He's valuable, he's hard to play against. But he's not a game changer. He doesn't make something from nothing. And then there's the Havertz who drops slightly deeper, links play, contributes technically, and becomes part of a possession sequence rather than the end of one. That version of Havertz can actually be really useful in a game where we need to keep the ball. If Arteta plays him the first way, high, aggressive, physical, it tells me Arteta is planning to be more direct, to use Havertz as a target, win second balls, and try to grind out a goal from set pieces or transitions. If Arteta plays him the second way, as a link player, it tells me Arteta still wants to play football, still wants to build, still believes we can outpass City even without our best players. And the reason this matters isn't just Sunday. It's what it reveals about how Arteta sees this squad right now. I've been a massive Arteta defender. I think he's an elite manager. But there's a version of this game I'm genuinely worried about. The version where Arsenal set up to not lose, where we park a bit deeper than we should, try to hit on the counter, and end up spending 70 minutes defending desperately before conceding a Haaland header from a corner and losing 1-0. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's what cautious Arteta looks like when he's not confident in his attacking options. We've seen it. Against the top 6 away, when we've been short of attacking quality, we've sometimes been too passive, too reactive. And City, even when they're not at their absolute best, will punish passivity. But here's the other scenario, the one where I get genuinely excited. Arteta surprises everyone. He starts with a high press, trusts his players, and says, right, we go after them for 20 minutes. We don't sit off, we don't wait. We press Ederson, we press their centre-backs. We make it uncomfortable. Because here's the thing about City that people forget. When teams press them with genuine aggression and organisation, they can be rattled. Even at the Etihad. We've seen it from teams who had no business threatening City, because the press works, because Ederson sometimes panics under pressure, because Rodri, or whoever fills his role now, can be bypassed with the right press trigger. If Havertz is the striker in that system, leading the press, disrupting City's build-up, and freeing up Eze and Martinelli to run in behind, that's actually an interesting tactical idea. It's risky, but it might be our best chance of actually winning this game. Because settling for don't lose isn't good enough anymore. The table doesn't give us the luxury of a draw. We need something from this game, which means we need to be brave. And I think that's the real Havertz question. Not is he good enough to start, because yes, he is. The question is, does Arteta use him bravely or cautiously? Because that choice will define the entire game. Let me bring this together now, because I think there's a bigger picture here that goes beyond Sunday's team sheet. We talk a lot as Arsenal fans, as football fans, about whether a team is title ready, whether a squad has what it takes. And the honest answer, the one I've been wrestling with all week, is that Sunday will give us a real answer to that question for the first time. Not a comfortable answer, a real one. Because title-winning teams find a way. That's the brutal, simple truth of it. Liverpool in 2020, they lost key players. Man City under Guardiola, they've had seasons where they were ravaged by injuries and still found a way to grind. Barcelona at their peak, when Messi had a knock, someone else stepped up. Because the squad had depth, because the mentality was right, because the manager trusted the players he had left. Can Arsenal do that? Can this squad find a way without Saka, potentially without Odegard, and with a right-back situation that's unresolved 48 hours before kickoff? I genuinely don't know, and I think that uncertainty is important to sit with, because the optimist in me says yes. The optimist says Martinelli is on fire. The optimist says Eze has been brilliant since he arrived. The optimist says Rice is the kind of player who elevates his game when it matters most. The optimist says that Arteta has earned enough trust to figure this out. But the realist in me, the one who watches every Arsenal game, every training session clip, every press conference, the realist says that this is the moment where squad depth gets exposed. And we knew it was thin. We knew since January that we didn't add enough. We knew that we were 1 or 2 injuries away from a problem. We're now 3 or 4 injuries away from a crisis. And we're at the Etihad. Here's what I'll say before we finish. And this is my honest take. If Arsenal go to the Etihad and lose this game, especially if they lose it passively, without a fight, without an identity, the title race is not over mathematically, but it is over psychologically. Because this group will have shown that when the moment comes, when the injuries come, when the pressure comes, they fold. And that is incredibly hard to come back from. But if Arsenal go there and compete, if they press hard, if they make it difficult, if they find a goal from somewhere and make City earn every single second of that game, even if they lose, I think the character that shows tells you something really important about where this team is going. Not just this season, beyond this season. Because the best Arsenal moments of the last 3 years, the ones that made me think, this team is different now, weren't just the results, they were the performances. The way we played at Anfield and shut them out. The way we went to the Bernabeu. The way we played at the Etihad last time and gave them absolutely everything. That Arsenal, the Arsenal that competes on the biggest stages with belief, that team needs to show up Sunday, with or without Saka, with or without Odegard. Because if they do, then whatever happens in the title race, I know this group has something in them. And if they don't, then maybe Arteta's got more work to do than any of us want to admit. So here's my question for you, and I want a real answer in the comments. Not, come on Arsenal, not, we'll smash them, a real answer. Do you think this Arsenal squad, as currently available, as currently constituted, is genuinely capable of winning a Premier League title this season? Yes or no? And tell me why. Because I think how you answer that question says everything about what you really believe about where this club is right now. I'll be back after the game, whatever happens.